The Valorian Empire was old. Very old. They had ruled the Andar star cluster for 12,000 years. Their skin was silver and shined like metal under light. Their eyes were deep and dark like the space between stars. They lived for thousands of years, and they thought they were better than everyone else in the galaxy. So when the High Council made their announcement, the entire empire shook with anger. Princess Yuna of the Third Royal Dynasty was going to marry a human. The news spread across every world in the empire within hours. In the crystal towers of the capital, nobles shouted and broke things. In the military stations, admirals slammed their fists on tables. In the temples, priests prayed for guidance that did not come. Admiral Theron was the loudest voice against the marriage. He stood before the council with his silver face twisted in disgust. His voice echoed through the great hall. A human, he said, spitting out the word like it was poison. You want our princess to marry a human. These creatures live for barely 100 years. They cannot see ultraviolet light. They cannot hear the songs of the cosmos. They are primitive. They are weak. This marriage is an insult to 12,000 years of pure Valorian blood. The council listened but did not change their minds. They could not change their minds. The war had forced their hand. The Keth Dominion had attacked the Valorian Empire 300 years ago. The Keth were monsters made of shadow and hate. They ate worlds and left nothing behind. For 3 centuries, the mighty Valorian fleet had fought them. For 3 centuries, they have been slowly losing. Then the humans came. Their ships were ugly. Metal boxes with loud engines that screamed through space. Their weapons were simple. Missiles and cannons that seemed like toys compared to Valorian technology. Their soldiers were small and soft and died so easily. But they did not stop. The humans threw themselves at the Keth with a fury that shocked the galaxy. They fought battles they could not win and somehow won them anyway. They laughed when they should have screamed. They charged when they should have run. In 18 months, they did what the Valorians could not do in 300 years. They broke the Keth Dominion. Now the humans wanted payment. Not money, not technology, not planets. They wanted something far more valuable. They wanted a place among the great powers of the galaxy. They wanted respect. They wanted a royal marriage. On Earth, a man named Do-Yun received his orders on a quiet morning. He was a lieutenant commander in the Earth Defense Fleet. He was 34 years old, average height, with black hair and brown eyes that had seen too many battles. His face was calm as he read the message on his screen. It was always calm. His crew said he could walk through fire without changing his expression. You have been selected for Operation Bridge, the message said. You will represent humanity in a political marriage with Princess Yuna of the Valorian Empire. This mission is voluntary. However, refusal will be noted in your permanent record. Do-Hyun read the message 3 times. Then he closed his eyes and thought about what it meant. He would leave Earth. He would leave his family. He would live among aliens who hated humans. He would marry a woman who did not want him. He would probably die alone, far from home, surrounded by silver faces that wished he had never been born. His communication screen lit up. His sister Vyunji was calling. He answered, and her worried face filled the screen. She looked like him, the same black hair and brown eyes, but her face showed every emotion she felt. Right now, she felt fear. You got the orders, she said. It was not a question. Yes. Do-Hyun, you do not have to do this. They said it was voluntary. There must be other officers. Volunteers who actually want this. Do-Hyun almost smiled. Almost. There are no volunteers, Yoonji. That is why they asked me. Because you never say no? Because you always take the missions nobody else wants? Her voice cracked. This is not a battle, brother. This is a life sentence. You will be alone out there. They hate us. They think we are animals. I know. Then why? Do-hyun was quiet for a long moment. Through his window, he could see the blue sky of Earth, the world that had made his people, the world that had sent them to the stars, the world that had taught them to never give up, no matter how hard things got. Because someone has to, he said finally. Because if this marriage fails, the alliance fails. And if the alliance fails, the Keth will come back. They always come back. And next time, we might not win. Yoonji wiped her eyes. You are too good, Do-hyun. You always were. I am not good. I am just stubborn. This time, he did smile. Just a little. Far away, on the Valorian capital world, Princess Yuna stood in her window and watched the stars. She was beautiful in the way all Valorians were beautiful. Silver skin, dark eyes, hair like streams of moonlight. She was 700 years old, still young by her people's standards. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched stars die dawn. Now she was going to watch a human arrive. A human who thought he was worthy of her hand. Her handmaiden Somin stood behind her, silent and patient. Somin had served Yuna for 200 years. She knew when to speak and when to stay quiet. I will not love him, Yuna said to the stars. I will not even like him. The council can have their alliance. They can have their ceremony. But they cannot have my heart. The stars did not answer. They never did. Somewhere in the darkness between worlds, a small human ship was already on its way. Inside it, a man with calm brown eyes looked at the stars and wondered what kind of life waited for him at the end of his journey. Neither of them knew that everything was about to change. The first week was silence. Do-hyun arrived at the Valorian capital on a cold morning. The sky was purple and 3 suns hung low on the horizon. Everything was made of crystal and light. The buildings reached so high they disappeared into the clouds. The air smelled like flowers he did not recognize. Nobody came to welcome him. The gods led him to his quarters without a word. The room was large and beautiful, with windows that showed the entire city. But Do-hyun noticed the small things. The furniture was slightly old. The view faced away from the palace gardens. The servants who brought his food never looked at his face. This was the worst guest room they had. They wanted him to know his place. Do-hyun did not complain. He did not ask for better treatment. He simply unpacked his small bag, sat down at the desk, and began to study. He read about Valorian history. 12,000 years of wars and peace, arts and science, kings and queens. He learned their language, practicing the strange sounds until his throat hurt. He memorized their customs, their holidays, their sacred traditions. The servants watched him and reported to the palace. The strange human sits in his room and reads. He does not demand anything. He does not try to leave. He just reads and reads and reads. Princess Yuna heard these reports and felt something she did not expect. Anger. He thinks he can understand us, she said to Somin one evening. He thinks that reading our books will make him worthy. 100 years of life cannot understand 12,000 years of history. Somin arranged flowers in a vase. Her movements were slow and careful. Perhaps he is simply trying, Your Highness. Is that not better than not trying at all? Trying is not enough. It will never be enough. But Yuna found herself thinking about the human more than she wanted to. What was he doing in that room? What was he thinking? Did he miss his home? Did he hate being here as much as she hated having him here? On the 8th day, her curiosity won. She told herself she was just observing the enemy, understanding his weaknesses, learning how to defeat him without breaking the alliance. These were good reasons, logical reasons. She walked to his door and knocked before she could change her mind. The door opened, and there he was, smaller than she expected. His skin was brown and warm, so different from Valorian silver. His eyes were dark, but not like her people's eyes. His eyes were soft, gentle, like the eyes of the small animals that lived in the palace gardens. "Princess," he said, and bowed. His pronunciation was not perfect, but it was good. Better than she expected. "I came to see how you are settling in," she said. The lie came easily. "I am well. Thank you for asking." He stepped aside to let her enter. The room was neat and organized. Books and tablets covered the desk. Notes in his strange human writing filled several pages. He had been working hard. Yuna walked to the window. The three suns were setting, painting the sky in colors that humans could not fully see. She wondered what this view looked like through his limited eyes. Then she saw his face, and her thoughts stopped. There were tears on his cheeks. Valorians did not cry often. Their long lives had taught them to accept loss as part of existence. But this human was crying silently, his face turned toward the sunset, his shoulders shaking slightly. "You weep," she said. Her voice came out softer than she meant it to. Dahyun did not try to hide his tears. He did not apologize for them. He simply turned to face her and spoke the truth. "My mother died. The message came an hour ago. The lightspeed delay means it happened 6 months ago. By the time I could return to Earth, she will have been in the ground for almost a year." Yuna felt something strange in her chest. A tightness. An ache. She had lost people before. Everyone who lived for thousands of years lost people. But she always had time. Time to say goodbye. Time to grieve. Time to heal. This human had nothing. His mother was dead and buried before he even knew she was sick. His entire species lived like this, racing against time, never having enough. Losing everyone and everything so fast that grief must feel like drowning. "I am sorry," Yuna said. She meant it. She was surprised by how much she meant it. Dahyun looked at her. Really looked at her. Not at the princess or the symbol or the alien. He looked at her like she was just a person who had said a kind thing. "Thank you, princess. That is kind of you." Such simple words. Such a simple moment. But something shifted in Yuna's heart. A wall she did not know she had built developed a small crack. What was she like? Yuna asked. "Your mother?" Dahyun's eyes grew distant. A small smile touched his lips. "She was strong. She raised me and my sister alone after my father died in the first Keth attack. She worked 2 jobs. She never complained. She used to say that humans were made to survive, that we were too stubborn to know when to quit. She sounds remarkable." She was. She was the most remarkable person I ever knew. They stood together in the fading light. The princess and the human. The immortal and the dying. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. When Yuna finally left, she did not return to her chambers. She walked through the palace gardens instead, looking at the stars that were beginning to appear. She thought about time. About how much she had and how little he had. About how unfair the universe was to create beings who burned so bright and died so fast. She thought. About the warmth in his eyes when he spoke about his mother. She thought about the crack in her wall. And for the failure. First time since the marriage was announced. Princess Yuna felt something other than anger. She felt afraid. The assassination attempt came on the 23rd day. Dahyun was sleeping when he heard it. A small sound. A hum that did not belong. His eyes opened in the darkness, and his body was already moving before his mind caught up. Humans had evolved on a dangerous world. A world of predators and disasters and constant threat. Their ancestors had survived by learning to notice the small things. A shadow that moved wrong. A smell that did not fit. A sound that was just slightly off. The ventilation system in his room made a soft whisper. He had listened to it every night for 3 weeks. He knew its rhythm like he knew his own heartbeat. This sound was different, higher, sharper, wrong. Do-hyun rolled off his bed and grabbed the small toolkit he kept by his desk. His fingers worked fast in the darkness. He pulled apart his communication device and found the power cell. He connected wires. He twisted metal. He built something new. The drone came through the vent 3 seconds later, thought it was beautiful in a terrible way. A sphere of silver metal that floated without sound. It was designed to kill without being seen. A neural disruptor that would stop a brain from working in less than a second. The target would simply fall down and never get up. No blood, no marks, no evidence. Do-hyun pressed the button on his device. The electromagnetic pulse was small but focused. The drone sparked once and fell to the floor like a dead bird. Palace guards burst through the door moments later. They found the human standing over the broken drone, his makeshift weapon still in his hand. He was breathing hard, but his face was calm. Always calm. The captain of the guards stared at the drone, then at the human, then at the drone again. His silver face showed confusion and something that might have been respect. "How did you know?" the captain asked. "This drone is invisible to human senses. No light, no sound, no heat signature." "I heard it," Do-hyun said simply. "The pitch was wrong for your ventilation system. That is impossible. The difference would be measured in frequencies your species cannot detect." Do-hyun shrugged. "I did not detect the frequency. I detected that something was wrong. Humans are good at that. We grew up surrounded by things that wanted to kill us." The captain did not know what to say. He ordered his men to take the drone for investigation and left guards at the door. Do-hyun went back to his desk and continued reading. News of the attack spread through the palace by morning. The purist faction that sent the drone was arrested within hours. They had been willing to risk war with Earth to keep human blood out of the royal line. They had failed, but the story everyone talked about was not the attack. It was the human who stopped it, a primitive species. The nobles had called humans weak, soft, limited. This weak, soft, limited human had heard death coming in the darkness and built a weapon from spare parts in 3 seconds. He had saved his own life using nothing but instinct and intelligence. Maybe humans were not as primitive as everyone thought. Princess Yuna visited him that night. She did not pretend it was for political reasons. She did not lie to herself anymore. "You could have died," she said. Do-hyun was sitting by his window, watching the moon's rise. 3 moons, all different colors. He had told her once that Earth had only 1 moon. She could not imagine a sky so empty. "I could die crossing the street on Earth," he replied. There was a small smile on his face. "Cars are more dangerous than assassin drones. At least drones are quiet. How can you joke about this?" "How can I not? I am human, princess. We live with death every day. If we stopped to cry about every close call, we would never stop crying." Yuna sat down across from him. She did not ask permission. She did not wait to be invited. They were past that now. "How do you bear it?" she asked. The question had been burning inside her for weeks. Knowing that everything you do, everyone you love, everything you build will be gone so quickly. How do you live with that weight? Do-hyun thought about the question. He took it seriously, which she appreciated. Too many people gave quick answers to hard questions. "How do you bear living so long?" he asked back. "How do you bear knowing that you can put off joy for 100 years and never feel the loss? That nothing is urgent because everything can wait? That the people around you move so slowly that watching them must be like watching paint dry?" Yuna blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever dared. You are being rude. I am being honest. My people do not have time to be anything else. They stared at each other. Human and Valorian. Brown eyes and dark eyes. Short life and long life. Then Yuna laughed odd. It surprised them both. She had not laughed like that in a very long time. Not a polite laugh or a political laugh. A real laugh that came from somewhere deep inside. You are strange, she said. You are beautiful, he replied. Then his face went slightly red. I apologize. That was inappropriate. It was honest. Those are not always the same thing. No, they are not. She leaned forward. Tell me about Earth. Tell me about your world. Tell me why your people are the way they are. So he told her. He talked about blue oceans and green forests. About cities that never slept and mountains that touched the sky. About humans who climbed those mountains just to see what was on the other side. About humans who dove to the bottom of the ocean just to prove they could. About a species that looked at every challenge and said yes instead of no. He talked until the suns rose. She listened to every word. When she finally left, the crack in her wall had become a door. She was not ready to walk through it yet, but she was starting to want to. The wedding day arrived with 3 suns rising over the crystal city dot. It was the largest ceremony in 3,000 years. Ships from 47 worlds filled the sky. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy crowded the streets. The Crystal Sanctum, the holiest building in the Valorian Empire, had been decorated with flowers that had not bloomed since the last great royal wedding. Everyone wanted to see the princess marry the human dot. Most of them expected a cold ceremony. They expected Princess Yuna to walk down the aisle with ice in her eyes. They expected her to speak her vows like a soldier following orders. They expected her to endure this marriage the way her ancestors had endured countless political unions before. They did not expect what actually happened. Doyan stood at the end of the aisle and borrowed Valorian robes. They were beautiful, all silver and white, but they did not fit him quite right. His shoulders were too broad. His body was too warm. He looked like exactly what he was. A human pretending to be something he was not. But he did not look afraid. He did not look angry. He stood straight and calm, his brown eyes watching the great doors at the other end of the sanctum. Waiting. The music began. 1,000 crystal chimes singing together in a harmony that made the air itself vibrate. The great doors opened, and Princess Yuna appeared. She was dressed in a gown made of light. Actual light woven into fabric by Valorian masters who had spent decades perfecting the technique. She glowed like a star as she walked. Her silver skin and moonlight hair made her look like a goddess from ancient stories. The audience held their breath. Yuna took one step, then another. Then she stopped. The music continued, but she did not move. She stood at the threshold of the sanctum, her dark eyes fixed on the human waiting for her at the end of the aisle. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Was she refusing? Was she going to run? Was this the moment when the alliance fell apart? But Yuna was not thinking about the alliance. She was not thinking about politics, or duty, or the fate of empires. She was thinking about the last 3 months. She remembered finding him crying by the window and feeling her heart crack for the first time in centuries. She remembered him building a weapon in the darkness and laughing about it afterward. She remembered him talking about Earth until the suns rose, his eyes bright with love for a world she had never seen. She remembered the night he read her human poetry. Strange, simple words that somehow said more than all the epic Valorian verses she had memorized. Do not go gentle into that good night, he had read, his voice soft in the darkness. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. That was humanity. That was Doyan. They raged against the dying light. They fought death with every breath. They loved fiercely, because they had no time to love slowly. She remembered the night she asked him what he wanted from this marriage. "I want you to be happy," he had said. "That is all. Whatever that looks like. Whoever that is with. I want you to find happiness, even if it is not with you." Even then, he had smiled his small, sad smile. "Humans are selfish creatures, princess. But we are also capable of great love. And love is not about possession. It is about wanting the best for someone, even if the best is not you." No one had ever said anything like that to her. In 700 years of life, through political games and noble intrigues and endless social performances, no one had ever simply wanted her to be happy. She looked at him now, standing at the altar in his borrowed robes. He looked uncomfortable, out of place, mortal in a room built for immortals, but his eyes found hers across the vast chamber, and he smiled. Not a political smile, not a diplomatic smile, not a smile of duty or obligation. He smiled at her the way he had smiled when she laughed at his terrible pronunciation, the way he smiled when she admitted she had never seen rain, the way he smiled when he promised to show her Earth before he was gone. That was the truth she had been running from. He would die. In what would feel like moments to her, he would grow old and weak, and then he would be gone. She would have thousands of years of life left. Thousands of years of memories. Thousands of years of missing him. It would hurt. It would hurt more than anything had ever hurt. And she walked forward. Anyway, because she finally understood what humans knew from birth. Time was not the measure of love. A century of genuine feeling was worth more than millennia of comfortable emptiness. The fire that burned brief often burned brightest. She reached the altar. She took his hand. His skin was warm. Humans always ran warm, burning through their short lives with an intensity that left marks on everything they touched. "I will not have long with you," she whispered. Only he could hear. "Then we will not waste a moment," he whispered back. The high priest began the ceremony. Ancient words in the oldest Valorian dialect. Blessings that had been spoken over royal couples for 12,000 years. Then came the question that mattered. "Princess Yuna of the Third Dynasty, do you accept this union of your own will? Free from obligation? Free from duty? Free from the demands of politics and power? Do you choose this man?" The sanctum was silent. Every delegate, every noble, every servant held their breath. Yuna looked into Do-hyun's brown eyes. Those simple, warm, impossibly kind human eyes. "I do," she said. A voice rang clear through the crystal hall. "I choose him. For however long we have. I choose him." Dahan's smile grew. His eyes were wet. "And I choose you," he said. "For every day I have left. All of them are yours." When they kissed, the crystal chimes sang a note that had not been heard in 10,000 years. The note of true love. 52 years passed like a dream. They were the happiest years of Yuna's long life. She traveled to Earth and saw the blue oceans Do-hyun had described. She felt rain on her silver skin for the first time and laughed like a child. She walked through human cities and watched people rush past, living their short lives with such desperate joy. She understood them now. She understood why they laughed so loud and loved so hard and never stopped moving. They were racing against time. Every moment was precious, because every moment was borrowed. Do-hyun showed her everything. Mountains and valleys, forests and deserts, cities that never slept and villages where everyone knew each other's names. He showed her the best of humanity, and she fell in love with his species almost as much as she had fallen in love with him. They had a daughter. They named her Hannah. She was the first human Valorian child in history. She had her father's warm brown eyes and her mother's silver-touched skin. She would live for centuries, the doctor said. long enough to bridge two worlds. Yuna watched her husband grow old. His black hair turned gray, then white. His strong body grew thin and tired. But his eyes never changed. They stayed warm and kind and full of love until the very end. Diane died on a quiet morning in the palace where they had first met. He was 86 years old. Yuna held his hand as he took his last breath. She had not aged a day. "Do not be sad," he whispered near the end. His voice was weak, but his smile was the same smile she had fallen in love with. "I got more than I ever dreamed of." "I got you." "I am not sad," she lied. "I am grateful, liar." He laughed softly. "You were always a terrible liar. And you were always too honest. Human weakness." He squeezed her hand. "Take care of Hana. Tell her stories about me. Make sure she knows that her father loved her." "I will. I promise." "And Yuna?" "Yes, thank you. For choosing me. For giving me the best 52 years any human has ever lived." Then he closed his eyes, and he was gone. Yuna did not leave his side for 3 days. She held his hand and remembered everything. Their first meeting. Their first conversation. Their first kiss. Every laugh and every tear, and every quiet moment in between. The galaxy expected her to move on quickly. The Lorians were practical about death. 52 years was nothing to a species that lived for millennia. She would grieve briefly and then continue with her duties. But Yuna was not the same Valorian she had been before, though Yun had changed her. Humans had changed her. 1 week after his death, she stood before a gathering of delegates from across the galaxy. 47 species. Thousands of representatives. All watching the grieving Empress region with curious eyes. Yuna wore white, the Valorian color of mourning. But she stood straight and strong. Her voice did not shake. "My husband taught me something," she began. "He taught me that humans do not measure worth in years. They measure it in depth, in intensity, in how much you feel, not how long you feel it." She paused and looked at the faces watching her. Some were sympathetic. Some were skeptical. Some were merely curious. He lived for 86 years. To a Valorian, that is barely a moment. But in those 86 years, he loved more deeply, laughed more freely, and lived more fully than most immortals do in 10,000 years. She stepped forward, her silver skin catching the light. The Valorian Empire spent 12,000 years building monuments to eternity. We built crystal towers that will stand forever. We wrote books that will be read for millennia. We thought we were great because we endured. Her voice grew stronger. But humans taught us something different. They showed us that greatness is not about how long you last. It is about what you do with the time you have. Humans reached for the stars, not because they would live to see the journey's end, but because they believed the journey mattered. They were right. She looked at her daughter, standing in the front row. Hannah was crying, but she was also smiling. She had her father's smile. "My husband is gone. But what he built, what we built together, will outlast even the stars." That is the human gift. Not to live forever, but to make forever worth living. The delegates rose to their feet. The applause started slow, then grew into a thunder that shook the walls. In the front row, an old woman with gray hair and brown eyes wiped tears from her face. Yunji had traveled across the galaxy to be here. She was the last of Doyu's family from Earth, and she had come to honor her brother. "You did good, little brother," she whispered. "You did so good." 50 years later, historians would write about this moment. They would call it the beginning of the human age, the moment when the galaxy finally understood what humanity had to offer. Not technology, not military power, not resources or territory. Hope. Humans brought hope. They showed the ancient races that time was not the enemy, that death was not the end. that every moment was a gift, and the only tragedy was wasting it. Princess Yuna lived for another 4,000 years. She never married again. She never wanted to, but she spent every day of those 4,000 years living the way Do Yoon had taught her, fiercely, fully, without wasting a single moment. And when people asked her about the human she had married so long ago, she would smile his smile and say, "He was the best thing that ever happened to me and to the galaxy." And she meant every word.